From the station that's on your side, you're watching News 19 at 11.
Guilty. That is the verdict handed down tonight in the double murder trial against Brett Parker. Good evening now, and thanks for being with us. I'm J.R. Berry.
And I'm Andrea Mock. After 13 days of testimony, a Richland County jury needed less than 3 hours to find Brett Parker guilty of killing his wife Tammy and his former business partner Brian Kapnerhurst. The two were shot and killed on April 13th of last year inside Parker's Irmo home in the Ascot subdivision. Prosecutors maintain that Brett Parker killed the two of them for the insurance money, first killing Tammy and then Kapnerhurst in an effort to frame him for his own wife's death.
However, the defense claimed Kapnerhurst killed Tammy and their client was forced to kill him in self-defense. But in the end, the jury didn't buy Parker's story, and it didn't take them long either. They got the case around 4:45 today. By 7:20, they sent word they had reached their verdict. Shortly afterwards, Parker was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And right after the sentencing, I managed to catch up with defense attorney Mark Whitlark to get his reaction to the swift events of the day.
We're definitely going to appeal the case, no question.
Surprised at the quick at the quick verdict?
Nah, you know, not really. I mean, when they had a rope ready for him when we got up here. At least we held it up a little bit. But let me run. I got to take care of some people right now.
Well, family and friends were in court tonight as the verdict was read. We caught up with a few of them outside the courtroom to get their reaction to the jury's verdict and the sentence.
I lost a daughter that nobody or nothing will ever replace. And no matter how sorry somebody is for whatever they've done, I mean, they took her away from me. And I agreed that I think the sentence should be no parole, how much ever the maximum is. He gave me 2 beautiful grandchildren, which I love very, very much. But he took a daughter that we all love very, very much too. And we don't have any more.
I loved her very much. So did everybody else. I loved Brett. He was like a son to me and his family. But he took away somebody that was very special to us. If he didn't love her, there was other people that did. He didn't have to kill her.
He needs to stay there. He needs to never get, because killing 2 people for no reason. Tammy was 44 years old. She spent her whole life trying to be good. Be a good woman, raise the kids right. He took her away. Brian worked with children, ball teams. He took them away. He never helped around the house. He played golf, did his own thing. He took 2 great people away from us. So let him spend the rest of his life.
The first was Tammy Parker's father, followed by Tammy Parker's mother. That was just before the sentencing tonight. Well, tonight we do have in attorney Jack Swerling to discuss the decision and also what's next for Brett Parker. News 19's Darcy Strickland is standing by with him. Darcy.
Andrea, J.R., thank you so much. We're pleased to have prominent Columbia defense attorney Jack Swerling with us this evening. Obviously, we now know what the next step is, but let's just kind of backtrack a little bit and talk about whether or not you were surprised that the jury was able to come back so quickly with the decision.
That surprised me because I know there was a lot of forensic evidence, and they spent a couple of weeks talking about forensic evidence and crime scene investigation, and they had to sort that out. Plus, you had the inconsistent statements that he gave. They had to sort that out and look at that compared with the evidence. So I was kind of surprised they came back in 3 hours.
Obviously, the defense's job is to make the evidence look circumstantial and to raise questions in the mind of the jury. How much did Brett Parker's character play into the overall picture of whether or not he was the kind of man that could do something like this?
Well, it's hard enough to defend the case just on the facts of the case when you have forensic evidence and you have statements that were given that are sort of inconsistent. But then when you inject character into the case and talking about adultery and you talk about the gambling, you know, this is a view that most people don't ever see. It's a side of life that most people don't see. So you have to you find yourself having to defend that as well, and that's difficult.
Were you surprised that Judge DeAndre Benjamin moved forward with the sentencing this evening?
No. I mean, there's no option on the sentencing. I mean, it's either, well, it's 30 to life is what the punishment is on a murder conviction. It's the judge probably at that point felt like that everybody was entitled to have a verdict and have the sentencing at that point and let everybody say what they wanted to say. I don't know if the defense asked for a continuance, did they?
I'm not sure of that.
Okay, I'm not sure about that. But, you know, it's possible had they asked for a continuance till the morning, she might have done that. But, no, it doesn't surprise me in that kind of case because the options are not, there are not too many options when you're dealing with murder. It's 30 to life.
And we had a chance to talk about that before the newscast. Life means life in South Carolina. How will he leave?
In a box. I mean, it really does mean life, and you don't get out until you die.
What happens with the appeals process?
Well, they'll file an appeal. I'm sure they will. In this kind of case, you have to file an appeal. We file appeals in most convictions, and it'll work its way up through the courts. You know, it could be 3 years before you get any ultimate decision on whether or not there were any errors of law during the course of the trial. And that's the only thing an appeals court looks at is issues of law. They do not look at the jury verdict itself. What they're concerned about is the admissibility of evidence or the exclusion of evidence, and it really falls on legal issues.
So what's Brett Parker doing tonight?
Probably sitting there and just wondering how he got himself into the situation where he is right now. And you know, he may be in denial. You know, he may, and the defense is taking the position he wasn't guilty. So, you know, we don't know exactly what's going through his mind. He may be thinking about what happened that day and what could have happened differently. He may be thinking about how he got taken advantage of in this case. He may be thinking about any number of things. But, you know, he's obviously, very few defendants come to grips with what happens to them that quickly.
All right, Mr. Swerling, we appreciate you, sir. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Andrea, JR, back to you.
Darcy, thank you. We want to take a moment now to talk about the two victims in this case, 44-year-old Tammy Parker and 46-year-old Brian Kapnerhurst. Brett Parker's wife worked in sales and sang with a group that performed around the Midlands called the Jump Start Band. Those in the band described her as a great person. She was loved by everyone. The couple's two children were at school when the shootings happened. Also, 46-year-old Brian Kapnerhurst was from Batesburg, Leesville. He was the Assistant Athletic Director for the Lexington County Recreation and Aging Commission.
Some of the most compelling testimony happened when Brett Parker took the stand in his own defense. In about 2.5 hours of testimony, Parker claimed he was in his bathroom when Kapnerhurst shot his wife. Parker says that Kapnerhurst pointed a gun at him and told him to go to the safe and get money. Parker testified that in that moment, he came up with a plan and grabbed a gun that was under a blanket on the top of a safe and shot and killed Kapnerhurst. And then he says he just kept pulling the trigger. But on cross-examination, Parker seemed to get the facts confused as if he saw or didn't see his wife being murdered.
What had just happened to me and what I had to do was horrific. I mean, you just seen your wife murdered and you had to shoot somebody who you thought was a friend in self-defense. I mean, it's just, it was crazy. And then not only that, you know, I'm laid in the middle of my driveway and I got cops with guns pointed on me. I had guns pointed on me that day, like, you know, it's very horrific.
Investigator Travis Holdorf testified that Brett Parker's written statement of what happened differed from the verbal statements that he gave investigators.
Another surprising twist to this case was the connection Brett Parker had with Sheriff Leon Lott. Lott told the court that he knew Brett Parker's father, Jack. After the two actually worked out at the gym one night, Jack Parker asked the sheriff to speak with his son. The pair then met face to face 5 different times. During the first meeting, Lott said Brett Parker admitted to having an affair, but told Lott it was because he and his wife were having marital issues. Lott told the court that it wasn't until another meeting with Brett Parker on June 6 that he told the defendant he was becoming aware that certain facts in Parker's statement were simply not matching up with the evidence.
When we sat at that kitchen table was the very first time I said that his story just did not fit the evidence, that he was trying to take a square peg and put in a round hole, and it just did not fit. And that was the first time that, I'm not going to say I was confrontational with him because it didn't. We didn't raise voices. That I just acknowledged to him that his story just didn't fit, that what he was telling me did not match the evidence that we had, and that there was nothing else that I could do.
As we mentioned, the two eventually met on 5 different occasions before Parker was arrested on Friday, July 20th.
Hands down, the most emotional day of testimony was the day that Brett and Tammy's 14-year-old daughter took the stand. We've chosen not to show her face to you tonight. The daughter told the jury that she overheard her father talking with Brian Kapnahurst about a gun. She testified that her father had said that Kapnahurst should have it for home protection, but she became very mixed up in her testimony about what she initially told police and began to cry.
I'm not doing it to stop him. I was in the room and I witnessed them talking about how he was giving a gun to Brian. I'm not lying about that. I was there and I remember.
Well, also during the daughter's testimony, Tammy's mother began sobbing in the courtroom.
Also during the 3-week-long trial, a bank teller admitted to having an affair with Brett Parker during his marriage to Tammy. She talked about a visit to Parker's home where he started talking about owning a gun, telling her that he felt like he needed protection after a 2010 break-in that is, at his home.
While you were in the office, did he tell you anything about certain weapons in the house?
He did mention that he had a gun.
And while you were in the office, at some point, did he indicate to you where the gun was?
He indicated that there may have been a gun in the desk.
And how did he indicate that to you?
He patted on the desk.
Can you show the jury how he patted?
Like this.
Can you show him up here?
Like this. But he didn't show me a gun.
And yet another woman who says she is Parker's girlfriend was called to the stand just last week. She testified that she met Parker at Great Wolf Lodge just 2 months after the shootings. In fact, the woman says she was invited to the Parker's family's July 4th beach vacation, and she said she was in love with Brett Parker.
Because Brett told me when I first met him, he told me that his wife had been murdered, and that a family acquaintance had killed his wife.
And that was the extent of it?
And I could tell that it was upsetting him. And I told him, I said, you don't have to tell me anything.
Well, she also testified that she had spoken regularly with Parker since his arrest.
Well, this trial has been full of surprises. Back on May 15th, the trial came to a dramatic stop. Family members say that Brett Parker suffered a panic attack while listening to details about his wife's autopsy. Medical examiner was testifying that Tammy Parker had bruising on her forehead just above her eye. At the time, Parker had been taken from the court to hospital, but in closing arguments today, prosecutor Luck Campbell told jurors that there was nothing wrong with Brett Parker that day. And a major development then happened on May 9th. The judge kicked Jack Parker, Brett Parker's father, out of the courtroom after reports that Jack Parker had spoken to 2 of the jurors. He was on the witness list and is among those charged in the same illegal gambling ring as his son.
So again, Brett Parker found guilty on 2 counts of murder tonight for the killings of his wife Tammy and business partner Brian Kapnahurst. He was sentenced to 2 life sentences with no chance for parole.
Well, still ahead tonight on News 19 at 11, a scorching night across the Midlands. Warm temperatures aren't going anywhere anytime soon. Jim is back with your family's tribute forecast.